In this video, we're going to build a very simple Windows Forms app that consists of a label to display some text and an image. It will not have any additional functionality associated with it. So the first thing we're going to do is show you the final app executing so you can see what it's going to look like. So for that purpose, let's show you how to open an existing project here from the File menu. So I'm going to go and select Open Project. And I'm going to navigate back to my Chapter 2 folder now within the Examples folder on my C drive. And you'll see within that folder that I have a subfolder named A Simple App, which is the app that we're going to create. And there's the solution file, so I'll go ahead and open that. Now it's asking me if I want to save any changes that I made to the previous app that we had created here. I'm going to just say yes and let it close that app for me, and now it's loaded up a simple app. And if I double click on the form1.cs file here, it'll open up the design area and show you the final design of this app. So we have the label with 2 lines of text saying welcome to Visual C#, and then we have our Dytel bug logo image at the bottom of the Windows form here as well. Now if I go ahead and run this, you'll see that it pops open in its own separate window. So this is my running app, and if I maximize it, I didn't set this up to stretch or resize any of the components so they stay in the upper left corner. I just want to show you that this is its own app running in its own window. If I bring that back to its original size, I can also resize the window if I want to, just like any other typical app. And I can terminate the app simply by clicking the close box. Now that is the final app that we'll be building, and as you can see, we did a couple of things here. Like I said, we had a label and an image that we were displaying. We also changed the background color within the window, and we changed the text that was displayed at the top of the window as well. So through the rest of this video, what we're going to do is now build this app from scratch. So to get started, let's go ahead and close this final project. So you can select Close Solution from the File menu to do that. And we'll now create a new project from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and select the New Project option, and that's going to display this New Project dialog. And by the way, notice that now, by default, it's selected within the Visual C# category, the Windows node, and by default also Windows Form application is selected because that's the last thing that I had created. Now, for the purpose of this example, what we're going to do is change the name of the project to a simple app, or whatever you'd like to call it. So I'll call mine a simple app. And so that I don't collide with the version that's in the Chapter 2 subfolder, I'm just going to let it place this project in the default location on my system under Visual Studio 2012 Projects in my Documents folder. Also notice that as I changed the name of the app, it also changed the name of the solution. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but I always keep this checkbox checked, Create Directory for Solution, so that it maintains every single app that I create in its own folder. In addition, if you are working on a team of developers using Team Foundation Server, you might also want to create an app that is managed with source code control, in which case you can check this checkbox as well. For our purposes, I don't do that, and I'm going to click OK to create the project. Now, as you saw previously, once the project gets created, the Windows form opens up in design mode, and we have the Solution Explorer showing me all the files with the form1.cs selected by default. And the form itself is selected, which is why we see these resizing handles here. So I can actually change the size of the window by dragging those handles, so I can set the form size to what I want. And in addition to that, I can do things like customize the text that's going to appear in the title bar of the form. Now, like I said, when you're looking at the Properties window, by default, things are shown in categories. So for example, you have the Appearance category, the Behavior category, etc. You can also view these items in alphabetical order. So if I click that, then you see just a simple list of properties. Now, the property for a form that tells you what's displayed in the title bar of the window is the form's text property, and it says the text associated with the control. Now, that's interesting because a form is one type of control that you can use when building a Windows Forms app. There are lots of different controls. You can see them all in the toolbox. So, for example, when I go to my common controls here, one of the types of controls is a button, a checkbox, a combo box, which is like a drop-down list, labels, picture boxes, things that we're going to be using in this particular app. All of them are controls, and all of them have text properties associated with them, or almost all of them. A picture box doesn't have a text property. So anyway, we have a text property which has the current text form 1, and what I want it to display instead is a simple app. So I type that in, and when I press enter, you can see that it immediately changes the text in the title bar. So this is part of the visual design aspect of creating a Windows Forms app. You can see the design changing as you make modifications in the Properties window and as you drag and drop various controls onto the user interface. Now, I already demonstrated to you that you can resize the form, so if you want to have the text and image lay out a certain way, you can size the form accordingly. And one of the other things that we're going to be doing is changing this form's background color. Now, I'm doing this primarily for demonstration purposes. Most Windows apps for standard Windows desktop apps use the same background color. That's not to say that you can't change it. For example, if you have a company specific color that's associated with your products, you might want to use that color in the background. So in my case, I'm going to change the background color by using the back color property, which you can see once again in the Properties window. The Properties window will only be populated with the form's properties, if the form is selected in the design area. So once I click the form itself, I can see all of its properties. Now, as far as the back color property is concerned, you can see that when I select it, I get a drop-down list here, and there are various options for colors that we can choose from. By default, the System tab is selected, and there's a bunch of system colors that you see. But there's also the Custom tab and the Web tab as well. So for example, if I go to the Custom tab, we see all these different color swatches being displayed. And let's just say, for argument's sake, we want to choose this light blue color as the background. You simply click it, and now it tells you the red, green, and blue components of that color that are making up the value for the back color property. And you can see that the IDE's background, or not the IDE, the Windows background changed from a light gray default background color to this light blue. Or if I wanted to change it to red, I could go back in and change it to red, and obviously you have control over what color you'd like the background to be. So that's how you change the background color. And the next thing we want to do is add a label to the form. And to do that, we're going to go back to the toolbox, and I'm going to pin the toolbox here just so we can see the controls a little bit easier. Underneath Common Controls, you'll see that one of the common controls is a label. So if I want, I can go ahead and I can do this two different ways. I can double click the label, which will make it appear automatically in the upper left corner, and actually there's three ways now that I think about it. I can drag the label onto the design area, in which case wherever I let go is where the label will be placed, and if I get too close to an edge, you'll see a little line snap in there, and that same thing at the top and the left, and also at the right and the bottom here. Those are guidelines that help you snap GUI controls into recommended positions in terms of distance, for example, from the left and top edges of the window as it's currently showing on the screen. So, again, the first way I could do that is by double clicking the label to get it to appear in the top left corner. I can drag it to wherever I want it, or with label selected, notice what the mouse cursor is. I can actually drag and create a label as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that for a moment, and the way I typically do it is by dragging it onto the user interface wherever I want it on the screen. So I'll just let it go there for the moment. Now, the label by default shows the text label 1, and what we'd like to do is have it display the text "Welcome to Visual C# with an exclamation point in it. So in order to do that, we're going to make changes to a couple of different properties of this label. Now, as I mentioned a little while ago, the controls typically have a text property that specifies what text is going to be displayed. So down here with the label selected right now, you can see that the text property is currently label 1, but if I want to change that to welcome, let's spell it correctly, welcome to Visual C# with an exclamation point, when I press enter, you can see that the text changes in the design area as well. So obviously that text doesn't quite look like the final app that we displayed for you. Remember, the final app had the text with a much larger size. The text was on multiple lines, and it was also centered inside of the window as well. So if you want to make changes like that, there's a couple of properties that we need to modify for that purpose. Now, first of all, a label automatically sizes itself to the text that it contains by default. If you want to control that size on your own, you can change the value of the so-called auto size property. Now, I'm going to list out the properties in alphabetical order so that I can find this easier here. Here you can see the auto size property, and it's currently set to true, but if I double click that value, it toggles to false, and now I get sizing handles that allow me to control the width and height of that label if I want to. So we'll change that again after we modify the font in this example. Now separately, we want to change the font size within the label. So in order to change the font or font size in the label, what we're going to do is use the font property. So here's the font property, and by default, once again, it says Microsoft Sans Serif 8.25 points. I'm going to go ahead and click that item and then the ellipsis button that appears to take a look at the font dialog. And as you can see, it has the specific font that's currently selected, the style of that font, and the size of that font specified in the dialog here. And for the purpose of this app, we're going to change to the recommended Seago UI font. So I'll go ahead and select Seago UI. And we want the text to be nice and big, so I'll go ahead and select 24-point size and click OK. And now, of course, the text is not properly fitting within the label. If I resize the label, you can see that I can make it fit so that all of the text is currently displayed. Now at the moment, it's displayed, but it's not centered the way that we had it in the final app. So what I'm going to do is tell the text to align centered, and I'm going to make the label itself be centered from left to right within this form. So let's first change the alignment of the text itself, and to do that, we're going to use the so-called text align property. So let's go scroll down to the T's here, and here you see text align, and for this one you get a nice little set of boxes which says where you want the text to align within the label. And I'm going to go ahead and select the center, middle center option, which it changes to here. I could type that if I know the name of the option, but it's just easier to select it from this little drop down, which now shows you the highlighted button representing how the text is currently aligned. Now, of course, the label itself is not quite in the center. In fact, I'll purposely move it out of the center here and adjust it so that it's pinned currently to the top and left sides of the form. But let's say we want that to be centered horizontally inside of this window. And to do that, what we can do is select Format and then Center and Form horizontally. And now it automatically figures out for me where that GUI component should be based on the current width of this window. So the last piece we need to take care of in this app is to get a picture onto the screen which has our bug icon or whatever image you'd like to display in it. And to do that, we're going to drag a picture box onto the IDE design area. And you'll notice that again, as I drag this around, we see certain guidelines showing up. Like these blue highlights indicate alignment with other controls, or the ones at the edges indicate alignment from the edges of the user interface window. So I'm going to go ahead and put this right below the Welcome to Visual C# label. And you can see here that it gives a certain size to the picture box initially, but there's no picture displayed in it. I need to get that picture into my app and have it display that picture as well. So there's a couple of different ways we can do that, one of which is to use the so-called image property of that picture box. Now the picture box itself is currently selected, so here's the image property, and if I click the ... ellipsis button, it's going to display this select resource dialog where I can load up the image and select it. I can also get to this through what's known as the Smart Task menu for the picture box, this little play button it looks like here on the control itself. If I click that, you can see there's a choose image option here, and that too will display the select resource dialog. So anytime you let's cancel that for a second. Anytime you select a GUI control in the design area and you see this little triangle icon on it, it means that there are quick access to some of the common features that you might want to use for that control or modify for that control. So let's go ahead and choose the image. Now at this point there are no images in our project. So what I can do is tell it to import an image into our project. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now in the Chapter 2 folder with the examples that you downloaded, I've provided our bug image, but you can go ahead and select any image you want for this purpose. I'll select my bug image and click open, and now you can see that it has created a resource named bug, and it's showing you a preview of that image. Because the window is narrow, it's not showing the full thing, so let me stretch it so you see the whole image being displayed. So now I'll go ahead and click OK. And automatically it has now displayed the image, but I can't see the whole thing. So I have a couple of options there. One is, of course, I can go ahead and do things like resizing this picture box, but even there the image itself is not fitting the picture box correctly here. And to help fix that, we have what's known as the size mode for the window. And there's a whole bunch of different size, or not the window, the picture, excuse me. There's a whole bunch of different size modes. The normal size mode is what's selected by default, and what that does is it displays the image starting from the upper left corner of the picture box and just shows you as much of the image as can fit into the picture box given its current size. Now I don't really want it to be quite like that. I want it to show you the full image even if it has to scale it down a little bit as well. So for that purpose I'm going to change the value of the size mode property. So for example, if I select stretch image, it's stretched the image a little bit vertically to fit into the full height of the picture box, and it has also narrowed the image so that it fits horizontally into the picture box as well. And you can see here that there are a number of other options. There's an auto size option which says to size the picture box to the size of the image itself. You can center the image in the picture box, which means if the image is too small to fit in the picture box, it'll show up centered. If it's too big to fit, it'll show you just the center of the image. And you can also zoom in on the image to fill the picture box a different way as well. So you've got a number of different options there. Now at this point we've finished the design of this simple GUI based app, and we can go ahead and hit the save or save all icons here to save the files in our project. We can then run the project by clicking the Start button, and there you have it, your first Visual Studio Express Windows Forms app. We didn't build any C# code, however there was actually a bunch of C# code that got generated for us. So for example, if I right click form1.cs and say view code, this code that comes up was generated for us. And then separately, you can also see within the form1.cs node, form1.designer.cs, and that file, if I double click it, this contains the code that built the GUI you saw on the screen. So for example, it created for me the label called label1 and the picture box called picture box 1, and those were each created when I dragged them onto the user interface. And notice this grayed out line that says Windows Form Designer generated code. You never want to modify that code, but I'm going to expand this node to show you this is all the code that was generated for the label that we created. So we did things like changing its font and its location and its text, etc. I'm sorry, here's the text. We also configured the picture box, and we also made changes to the form itself, such as changing the background color and also changing its size as well. So all of this code was auto-generated for you, and one of the nice things about visual app development is it allows you to very rapidly create a graphical user interface and have code generated that builds the user interface for you. Now, at this point, we're going to be moving on to lessons where we focus primarily on console applications for the next many lessons as we teach you the fundamentals of C# and object-oriented programming. If you're interested in doing further Windows Forms or other GUI design, we have 2 lessons on Windows Forms app development. We have 1 additional lesson on Windows 8 UI development and a separate lesson on Windows 8 graphics and multimedia, and we have a couple of lessons on Windows Presentation Foundation, GUI, graphics, and multimedia as well.